Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. I'm also an arts reporter for Georgia Voice. I'm very happy today to be speaking to Samuel Kay Forrest of the new film HIPBEAT. In the new film, a young man searching for his identity goes on a journey from anarchy to embracing love in the Berlin LGBTQ community. Samuel Forrest plays the lead character of Angus, and he is also the writer and director of the film. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Sure thing. So how did this film come up?
As we were briefly talking about before, I was visiting Berlin because my siblings lived there who helped work on the film in certain capacities and help produce it. And I was so inspired and enamored and moved by the inclusivity of the people in the queer community there, and this kind of free space to be yourself and explore whatever your gender or sexual identity was without judgment. And I had never seen a kind of community. I'd seen nightlives and party communities around the world and and experienced things, but not quite with this openness to explore your authenticity and what that may be. And so I was really inspired by that. And my siblings, getting to see them in this world and how much they inspired people, but also how much they navigated through it. You know, the character Angus is based on my younger sibling, who's the non-binary, and they do fight the system by day and then brave at night. And I've never seen someone like that could be have these masculine traits, but also be so feminine and so sensitive. And so I thought that was such an interesting character that I'd never seen portrayed on film before.
Sure.
And they are very inspiring to me and my other siblings, because they are always out there on the front lines, just fighting for all causes and human rights, and they're very active and proactive and giving a voice to the voiceless. And I thought, what a beautiful story to kind of highlight this. And then also through my own experiences of my own self-discovery, and then friends and people you meet along the way. So it's a bit of a mismatch of everything, because I wrote the film and absorbed the world about 6 to 8 months before shooting it.
Okay. Wow.
So I spent enough time there.
Exactly. So, exactly. Yeah. Can you let's talk about Angus. I mean,
yes.
Angus, the character, goes to Berlin. Can you talk a little bit about how that experience changes the character of going to Berlin, and how it just sort of opens their eyes?
Yeah, of course. It was something that I noticed when I was writing the script and meeting all these people. There was this kind of melting pot for people who felt like they were different or outsiders. And what was beautiful, because you got all these people from not just the West, from other parts of Europe or the US, where it's much more open to, not in all places, there's still places where you can't necessarily be yourself, but much more socially acceptable, and things are changing. But there are places you'd meet people from the Middle East. Like we had the drag queen who's from Israel, and then also one of the smaller characters is from Palestine, and then we have people from Saudi Arabia, and I've worked on films, and then you have people from Africa or Asia or parts of the Eastern Europe, that it's a lot more difficult to be yourself. And so one thing that was a common thread that everyone could assimilate on was they could feel like they could explore who they were. And I thought that was something to really play with, where a lot of these people felt like they couldn't be themselves where they were from. And they felt like when they went there the first time, they felt liberated and felt inspired and felt encouraged and empowered to explore what that was. And I had never seen a city look quite like that. And that's why I thought this kind of story was so fitting to what Berlin was. And that was a common thread I met. It didn't matter where people were from the world, especially in the LGBTQ plus community. People were always kind of searching for something, or had left something because they didn't feel they belonged there. And it was a place where they could feel like they were belonged. And I think there's communities like that all over the world. Just Berlin is very proactive and vocal about it.
Exactly. So you grew up in London, is that correct?
Yes. So I grew up a bit of a gypsy family. So I was born in the Netherlands, but when I was a baby, I moved to the UK and grew up in London, and a little bit in the countryside, and then to Canada and to California, and then back to England, and little in Germany and Spain. So a bit of all over. My parents were always kind of moving around and looking for a better opportunity. And in retrospect, we're grateful, because it opens your eyes to so many cultures and people and ways of life, the things that make us different and similar. But at the same time, it's hard when you're a kid. But it's been a blessing now being older, especially working in film, because I do collaborate with people from all cultures and religions and genders and sexual orientation. So it's something that kind of definitely helped me prepare to listen and to learn and to also understand the people I meet and the people I work with.
So when did you actually go to Berlin for the first time yourself?
Oh, the first time it was probably 2016. I just wrapped a project in India and I went to go visit my siblings, and I was very just completely inspired, like I said before, about the openness and the non-judgment, and there's people vocalizing, trying to challenge the status quo, whether that be through activism and protesting, because Berlin is a city that has the most protests for all sorts of causes in the world. And then also this kind of wild nightlife where people can party and let loose for days on end. I'd never seen a duality or dichotomy quite like that. And so I had first 2016, and I thought in my mind, I had already started at like churning the inspiration into like prepping the ideas and how would we do it and the story and what we wanted to focus on. And then I was in LA doing a little bit of casting and a little bit of prepping and organizing. And then I went there and I just absorbed the world for months and months, prepping and finishing the script, because you always have your pre-production script, your shooting script, and your post. Exactly. And I cast all, when the roles cast for it, called for it, we cast all queer actors who were professional actors. Most of them, I found them in theater or go see a play or a live performance. But it was always someone who identified with being on the queer spectrum, or someone who would identify with what the character was when the role called for it. And that's really important, not only for authenticity, but there's a responsibility to do that, because these people should be able to express their story as well. And it was a big thing about this film is I didn't want it to feel like an outsider. I wanted it to make the film with the community. So a lot of the locations, a lot of the producers, a lot of the cast, a lot of the extras, a lot of the people involved in the film were people who really lived this world or are part of the community and embraced us and were open to sharing their intimate things. And so there was a responsibility to do it honestly, but also to do it with the community. We didn't want to be like, we're coming in here to make this film, this kind of mysterious Berlin rave queer culture. We wanted to be like, no, do you guys want to help us tell this story together? Exactly. And it was a much better response of having people within the community, like all our extras and a lot of the small parts, like the day roles, were all people that we met when we were out looking for locations and clubs and bars and stuff, just to really kind of add to the milieu and the ethos of the world.
Sure. Yeah, Berlin is such a vivid presence in this film, with all this going on, the political unrest, and there's so much. I mean, I've read this film sort of described as a love letter to Berlin. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely think it was in many ways, where I think me, I'm still young in my filmmaking career, come mostly from theater, but I definitely try to make the city feel like a character in itself. So I wanted the film to feel like a character within itself, because I think Berlin has this rep of being always moody and brooding and dark and edgy, and it does have those things, but the people who go to these clubs, the people that are filling these spaces are what's beautiful. It doesn't matter what club it is, whether it's Berghain or Côte d'Amour, some, Trésor or Kit Kat, some big, it's renowned club. It's the people who go there that make it beautiful. So I wanted to make the imagery and the city look a lot more alive in color, to be more bright, to be more warm, like the people were there, not so brooding. Because a lot of times I think the club scene's shown in a very, hedonistic or in a very, which it's not that it's not true, but also in a very much more brooding and dark way, which I'd seen that done before. I didn't want to replicate that. So I wanted to make it feel like the brightness and the warmth are the people that you meet there. Even when there's darker scenes or heavy scenes, it's still lit in a bright way, just to reflect how beautiful the people are, and how proactive and how many beautiful people are kind of making the world a better place and showing it in that light. Because I had never seen Berlin. It's always done in this very moody way. So I didn't want to repeat that kind of sensibility. Exactly.
You, as a director, writer, you obviously you don't shy away from some of the political climates that's going on, the political unrest that's going on right now. But you got arrested while filming one of the demonstrations. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's a little behind the scenes thing. Yeah, we did actually. The first protest we needed, obviously, you're limited by the production value, the cost you have, and it was in the script that we needed. It starts in a riot and it ends differently. That's kind of how the film opens. And we wanted to make sure that that we had this scene that kind of captured the kind of political climate at the world and the frustration of the character, to kind of show his journey from how hate incites hate and love incites love, and to kind of show this arc. If you just kind of throw that negativity and that hate back out, that's what you're going to get, instead of and I don't want to give too much away, but on his journey, we start in that way where he's very angry at the world. It was something where we needed it. And when I went there, we had one of the police commissioners of Berlin help find a lot of the locations, a lot of the abandoned buildings, a lot of the areas that we could shoot in. But we couldn't find this location. And then he told me about this May 1st protest, which has been going since the late 1800s for the workers' rights. And it was kind of, even before World War I and stuff, it was kind of when you had the rise of fascism and stuff like that, already starting back then. It was kind of a counteraction to that.
Okay.
And they've been doing these protests in Europe, but mostly Berlin, since the late 1800s on May 1st, every year like clockwork.
Wow.
And it's just a kind of for the workers' rights and people against authoritarianism and kind of for human rights and democracy. And at times in history, obviously, as we know with the Germans, it was very suppressed and went very dark at times. But this was always something that there was a resistance always on May 1st. And it was something where it has this great reputation of the police and the anarchists and the protests and the peaceful ones and the anarchists, and then there's just the students and the young, all these people kind of that. And so we went with the police commission and we're like, we're going to shoot some stuff with the police because it's going to build up. So that's when we're behind shooting all the stuff with the police. And he had organized all the gear, all the stuff we needed. But then I told him, I was like, look, we have this arrest scene. And he's like, well, I don't tell you what to do or what you can't do. But I had spoken about with him and also someone who knows the German law that if there's since the Third Reich fell and World War II, and the Nazis, where if you express it for art purposes, it's legal. So they don't have that same repercussion. So you're allowed to go and shoot. And it was the only thing that I couldn't recreate this. So when I was standing on the front line, I remember I was even giving a peace sign and trying to just kind of capture the atmosphere and the mood of the world, and had two cameras shooting me. And then it just kind of got out of hand because eventually that many people and the police have to feel like they can control it. And then they didn't even know we were shooting at that time. They had no clue we were filming. They lost track of everything, and it turned into this massive riot, and I'm right at the front of it.
Wow.
Like right, and so they came after me, and the irony is, because we shot this in 2019, the irony is that I was wearing a mask, and back then a mask was illegal because at a protest you couldn't hide your face and your identity. It was considered against the law, and so it was ironic because in 2019 they came after me because I had a mask on and I looked sketchy. But now the irony is, post now in the pandemic, it's illegal to go to a protest without a mask.
Wow.
And so I think it's pretty funny. Like, it's a funny, like, ironic thing that, and I just put myself in that situation because I think that's something that'll always be universal, that people will protest. So I wanted to do it honestly because there are people at the front lines who go through this, and to kind of capture what it's like there at the front lines. And just to kind of be a metaphor for what the world was going through at that time. And then kind of to start from that place, to start from the riot, and then he goes on his journey from there to finding ways to have a positive way of expressing himself and a positive way of looking at the world, and not such in such an angry way. So yeah, so I did get arrested. We got arrested twice. I got arrested twice making the film. All charges were dropped. Everything was good, but I guess I was they must have thought I was really, this person who was trying to overthrow the government or something. But yeah, so everything worked out, but it was just an interesting story and a backstory to kind of really be going through that. But in retrospect, I'm grateful because it was honest, and everything worked out in the end. And thank God for the German law of freedom of expression.
Wow.
I'm sure if I did that in the US, they would have destroyed the cameras, and I don't know what they would have done.
Exactly. The character of Angus in the course of the film meets the character of the drag, a character, the character of Judy, who is a drag performer. How does meeting Judy change Angus?
Well, she's the mentor.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who encourages him that it's okay to be yourself, and if people don't accept you for who you are, and they're not people that you spend your time with. And there's always someone out there who will love you for you are and your authenticity. And it's okay to question and to not always know, but to stay open. And she's really the one who pushes them and encourages them to start going on this journey that it's okay to be who they are.
Okay.
So she's the mentor. She's the kind of the fairy godmother.
Okay, that's good. I mean, how important would you say, exploring gender and sexuality, how important is it to do that in your work?
Well, I think it's important. It's nice that it's to come more to the mainstream. I think a lot of these themes have been around for a long time, a lot of these things aren't new. They're just now they're more socially acceptable, more conversations are happening about it, more awareness is happening, which is crucial and taking way too long, but there is progress happening. So I'm just trying to capture what's the happening now and really how it's affecting in the times and the rules of society that we have that maybe in the things that hold us back or make us feel like we can't question these things. And so it was something where, I think I was always very aware of the history of, the LGBTQ plus community, even from the ancient times. I did a lot of research to understanding where these questionings of gender and sexuality come from, and have been around for millennia. But it had kind of lost its way and kind of really been under the ground. And now it's finally feeling like there's a voice that it's okay to be, much more in the mainstream. And it was something where I had felt in Berlin that these people were always and will always be doing that. And like cities, like all cities around the world, and there's a lot of beautiful rebels with a cause, I like to say, who've always been being pioneers and passing that torch forward. But I think now there's another level of like, why I wanted to focus on a non-binary character, because it's dealing with the gray area. It's not so black and white about this is what this is and this is what that is. It's just questioning and flowing between it, which is to start a conversation about these things of gender, about these things of sexuality, these rules that we have in place. And are they the things that are the best for all of us? I mean, shouldn't someone be able to live their life as long as they don't hurt someone physically the way that they want to live it? And so I think there is a sense of also approaching it with this inclusivity of this idea that it's okay not to just be this or that. It's okay to question or to change, or to, always on the journey to finding your authentic self.
Okay.
And so a character like that definitely challenges all the norms in a lot of ways that we are conditioned of how we look at gender, and it's either male or female. But if you have a character that doesn't quite believe in gender, then it raises a lot of other questions about, and so that was something that I had never seen approached in that way. And so it was also something that wasn't new. There's even indigenous and Native American cultures that had up to 5 genders, but it was something where, I had not in a kind of the modern context and the contemporary context dealt with a character who, is questioning things, but also understands that why are all these rules this way? Why, if I feel this way, love transcends, or your feelings for someone can transcend. It's not based on gender or ethnicity or race or religion. Love is just liberates, it overwhelms you, it connections you. And that's more important than the rules that we put in place to kind of understand or make sense of things. And so the character, I thought, was not purposely radical, trying to be honest about the rules that we've set in place about things. And the idea that, rules that, that when it comes to love and connection, being yourself, it is words, in my opinion.
Okay. If I'm correct,
still there.
I'm still here. Yeah, we've had a rough interview. Seems to be better right now. I know that you've done several short films, but if I'm correct, is this your first feature film?
Yeah, the first feature film I wrote and directed. I had done some short films, and I'm just wrapping up my next feature film. So yeah, kind of, and I come from a theater background, so mostly film and TV and theater, and kind of come from that, or the theater family. So you always start with theater, and I had never really planned on doing film, and then I went to films. I was a little bit disappointed about the whole work I was doing, and I felt it's like, what are stories that aren't being told, or what are things out there that I think are inspiring or that can maybe be meaningful to people, and to deal with stories that are for the outsiders, or the people who feel marginalized and the people that don't fit in. And that was much more interesting to me than to kind of keep repeating and doing the same thing. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do something if it comes from an authentic place, whether that's a period piece or a fantasy film or sci-fi or drama. Just for me, I was more interested in trying to tell the story of today, or to kind of deal with the questioning and the frustration and the complexity and the duality of living, you know, as someone in the LGBT plus community through the times of today. Okay. And so it was just a story that stood out to me and that I'd never seen told before. And I am a little bit of someone, when I see something not being talked about, I'm like, that's interesting because no one's talking about it. And you know, and because I think as an artist, there is a part that you want to reveal what people conceal without judgment, but you want to just bring awareness and start a conversation. And Angie and Angus is, they're someone who definitely, hopefully can start a conversation, but in a way that makes people feel included, and that you're not ever really alone. There's always someone out there who'll love you or accept you or understand you. You just might not always have found them yet.
Okay. You mentioned a few moments ago that you have another project coming. I was actually on IMDb earlier, and you do seem to have a lot of projects that are coming up. Can you talk a little about some of the other projects that you have coming up?
Yes, one's called Voices of My Ancestors. I did it with my African, European, and American partners. Great actor. I did my short film with that's touring festivals, and is out on some streaming platforms now. We shot a feature in West Africa and Brazil and a little bit in Europe. And so that was the next project we've been working on. And then did a couple of short films. That's the next feature that we were planning on releasing the end of summer, early fall 2022, which is called Voices of My Ancestors. And it's about a brother and sister searching for the meaning of their life by reconnecting with their family. So it's kind of about this journey of discovering where you come from and your roots. And then the other one is about artists, dreamers living in Los Angeles. So it's all about following your dreams. And that takes place and shooting in Los Angeles later this year, hopefully, if the pandemic doesn't get too crazy, you know.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on all of your upcoming projects. Congratulations on HIPBEAT. The film HIPBEAT is available right now on digital. It's where we're seeing. Thank you so much, Samuel Kay Forrest. I've enjoyed talking to you today. And
Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure, you know, and thank you for your kind words, and thank you for having me. And hopefully see you in the future for some other projects.
That'd be great. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of the day, wherever you are. Thanks so much.
You too. Stay safe. All the best.
Oh, did you? Oh, you did? Okay.